Hey everyone, I'm Coach Chippys and I've been a professional top laner or head coach for the past 8 years. During this time I've reached Worlds and MSI multiple times. Now I'm a full-time coach with a ton of passion towards helping players unlock their potential and climb to their dream rank. How's it going everyone? Today we're going to be covering everything you need to know about how to learn and master SANTE. Now this champion is really powerful right now and I've had a ton of requests to make a guide for him, and there's just no good content out there for him in my opinion. There's no in-depth guide about everything you need to know to play this champion, so that's why I'm here, right? I'm here to save the day, make this guide, and hopefully it will help you a lot in terms of learning the champion and being able to dominate games that you've seen other SANTEs probably do. For our first topic, we're going to be covering the runes, and it's very easy to build your rune page on SANTE, as you're going to be running the Grasp of the Undying page every game. Now, I know some players, even some LC Cape tops, have tried out Conqueror, but this is a bit of a bait. Everyone that tries out Conqueror goes back to Grasp, because the rune is just so much better. The way you want to be playing out your lane as SANTE is primarily you're going to be taking short trades, and especially with Grasp, after you hit a Q, you gain extra auto attack range. So easy to proc this rune consistently throughout the lane and get a ton of value from it. In Conqueror, I could only see being useful in elo brackets gold or below, because it gives you a lot more 1v9 threat. You can probably win your lane without the Grasp, but for the most part I recommend just sticking on Grasp even if you're in those lower brackets, because this rune is the most consistent choice overall. And as for the runes in this tree, you are going to be running Demolish every single game. This rune is just so broken, especially on SANTE, because he's such a strong laner, even though he only builds tank items. So this rune is just so good, and even though you do gain a little bit of value from Shield Bash, there's just no way you can compare it to Demolish. And as for the second rune, you're mainly going to be taking Second Wind and Bone Plating. There is room for conditioning in certain games if you're in a very free matchup, but early game is such an important part of League, so I strongly recommend taking the laning runes instead. And you'll be running Bone Plating versus heavy all-in champions such as Jax, champions like Riven that have to fully commit to you to proc it, and Second Wind versus champions that don't. Champs like GP or any range champion that want to be slowly poking you down. Second Wind is going to give you so much value, and if you're ever unsure which one to take, then you should lean towards Second Wind because this rune is just stronger overall. And as for the third rune, it's going to be Overgrowth. Now, you don't really need Unflinching on SANTE, as he's got his W that he can use twice to block CC. Even with your ultimate, you can use that to block crowd control. This champion is just so hard to lock down, so you don't really need Overgrowth. And if you do need Tenacity, you're going to be building Merc Treads anyway, so Overgrowth is going to give you a lot more value. And as for the secondary runes, you will be running Inspiration every single game. Now, you can choose between cookies or free boots. I recommend cookies in difficult matchups, so you'll see the matchup tier list later on. The harder the matchup, the more likely it is you need cookies. Or if you've been playing a bunch of SANTE and you realize my cookies are just stacking up in my bag, depends on how well you're playing it, then of course you can just run the free boots. I personally like to run cookies when I'm playing in high rank, because if you're against a good laner, cookies is always going to help you out, especially on a champ like SANTE where you want to be taking a lot of trades pretty often. You can take a lot of short trades. Cookies can give you a lot of value, but if you don't need them, you've been playing SANTE for a bit and you realize you don't use them, then of course free boots is the better scaling option. For the secondary rune, you will be running Cosmic Insight every single game no matter what. Now I know some people recommend taking Approach Velocity, but this is a bait on SANTE. You're so mobile without it, you don't really need it, and you will be taking Ghost a lot of time, we'll touch on that soon, but for the most part this rune is just overpowered. Cosmic Insight having a lower TP cooldown, lower summon spell, whether you take Flash or Ghost it doesn't matter, the lower cooldown of the spell is just so overpowered, especially when you verse a champion that doesn't take it. You can really abuse that window when you have your spells and they don't. And for the other runes, you will be running the attack speed rune. You should never be taking adaptive force on SANTE. The second runes will be resistances, so armor or MR. You can mix and match depending on what you're versing, right? If you're versing a champ like Jax, it can be good to take one armor, one MR. He does mixed damage. But if you're versing a Gwen, for example, you should run double MR. Or if you're versing a champion that does straight AD damage, like Gangplank, then of course you can run double armor. Moving on to summoner spells. Now the first spell you're going to be taking is Teleport. You're going to be running the spell every single game, because even though SANTE is very powerful in lane, you don't really want a spell like Ignite because you're still a tank. You still want to be a front line for your team, grouping up in teamfighting as much as possible, and Teleport is going to allow you to do that more often. Now as for the secondary spell, you're going to be running either Ghost or Flash. However, I do recommend defaulting to Ghost most of the time. Recently, they removed the mechanic where you can Q3 Flash on SANTE, which was a huge key part of his identity and a main reason people used to take Flash before, but now you want to be taking Ghost a lot of the time, because it's very easy to stick onto your opponent as SANTE, especially once you have Iceborne and you have Ghost, you run them down. It's almost impossible for them to get away from you, and you're going to get a ton of value. Your kill threat is going to open up a lot more with this spell, and you're also going to be able to play a bit more aggressive in side lane, because it's very easy to Ghost away from, a 1v2 or 1v3 as it is to Flash away from one, right? Ghost is going to allow you to play more aggressive inside, allow you to have more options in team fights, and especially the remove Q3 Flash. There's not a lot of room where I'll be taking Flash, so for the most part you will be defaulting to Ghost. The time I would take Flash are in certain games where the Ghost is not that useful. So let's say they have a full dive comp, they have Jarvan, or Malphite, Mumu, champs like that, and they're just full running into you, Kai'Sa, then Ghost is not going to be as useful, where Flash can have a lot of windows where you could Flash ult someone, Flash W ult, stuff like that, which it's not a useless spell by any means, it's just not as good as it used to be. So if you're versus a full dive comp, you should take Flash, but if you're versus champs that you need to get onto and stick onto, then of course Ghost is going to be better most of the time. Up next, we have item builds, and building on Cassante is pretty straightforward. You're going to be starting with Doran Shield every single game, but as for your first buy, there is a bit of variety, where Sheen feels extremely good in matchups where you feel like you can bully them. Matchups where you can look to beat them down, use the Sheen proc very often, you're going to get a lot of value from this item. But if that's not the case, if you're in a tough matchup, let's say you're versus a champion like Fiora, champion like Olaf, Bramble Vest is going to feel extremely good, and even Chain Vest feels not bad, because you want to be rushing your Iceborne as soon as you can in a lot of situations. Where Tier 2 Boots Rush, very good on a lot of champions, the difference in power of Cassante having Iceborne or not is so big that you really want to be rushing Iceborne. You can compare it to Sunder at Jax, where if you can get Sunder as fast as you can on the champion, it feels quite good. Iceborne is the same on Cassante. This item is just so broken on this champion that it just works so well with him that you really want to be getting it as soon as you can. So if you can avoid a Bramble Vest, that's really good. So if you can just get a Chain Vest instead or a Sheen, and work towards getting that Iceborne as soon as you can, that's great. But you will need matchups, Bramble Vest in certain matchups, such as Fiora and Olaf that we talked about before, champions with a lot of healing, and of course AD damage, Bramble Vest will give you a lot of value, and Renekton as well, but for the most part you will be rushing that Iceborne as soon as you can. However, there are variables. Sometimes you can't get that Iceborne. If they have a heavy magic damage team comp, of course you will need to run Jaksha the Protein, right? This item gives armor and MR, where Iceborne only gives armor, so if you're versus a heavy AP lane, then you will definitely need to go Jaksha the Protein, especially if their whole comp is AP, but there are situations where I'll be versing an AP champion in lane. So recently I played a game versus Mordekaiser where I still ran the Iceborne because this item is just so much stronger on Cassante if you can get away with it. So if you feel confident that you can just go Merc Treads in your AP lane and get the Iceborne, then go for it because this item just feels so much stronger. But if you're versus an AP champ and you feel like you can get away with it, but the rest of their comp is heavy magic damage, then of course Jaksha the Protein, really good. I'm just saying in general, Iceborne just feels amazing on this champion, so I recommend it if you can get it. And the reason I have Thornmail as an option here, even though I don't recommend it most of the time, is because there will be some situations where you will build Bramble Vest in matchups such as Fiora and Renekton, and you base with enough gold to get the Thornmail. Then of course you should rush it, right? It feels really good to, let's say you back with 1900, 2k, and you've got the Bramble, coming back with a Thornmail before they've even completed their Mythic, for example, you're just going to be basically unkillable. Especially if their top jungle is AD auto attackers, let's say they have a Graves or a Kindred, this item will feel great. But I wouldn't go into a game saying, alright, I'm going to rush this item, you really want to be getting Iceborne, but in matchups where you need the Bramble Vest, you can go Thornmail early on if you like. And as for the boots, you will be going Steel Caps in heavy AD games or when your lane opponent is a heavy auto-attacking champion, and you'll be going Merc Treads when they have a lot of CC and magic damage. So there will be some situations where you verse, let's say for example a Riven, a high AD champion in lane, but the rest of their comp has a ton of CC. They have Sejuani jungle, Syndra mid, Leona support, then you should still go Merc Treads even though your lane opponent is not AD, but you'll just build it after your laning phase, not during. And then as for Swiftness boots, you're going to be building this in matchups where they really need to slow you and stick onto you. So champions like Olaf, Darius, Nasus, this item can feel really good, so that's very hard for them to ghost you down and stay onto you. And as for the second item, you will be building Thornmail in games where you need the healing cut. And as for Sunfire, it's going to be games where they're going to be diving onto you. So if they have a ton of melee champions, Sunfire will give you a ton of value. But I do recommend, because you will be rushing Iceborne most of the time, that you do need an MR item at this point, because Iceborne only gives armor, and if you stack a double armor item, for example, let's say you go Iceborne into Thornmail, you're going to be very squishy to their AP threats if they have some. So if they do have some, of course you will be building Force of Nature or Abyssal Mask. Now Abyssal Mask is so cheap, one of the best items in the game for tanks, so I do recommend this one most of the time. But if you have no AP damage on your team, or your AP damage is playing quite poorly, right? Let's say they're stuck on their Lost Chapter, or they just have Ludens, they're 1 in 5, they're not playing so well, then of course you can go Force of Nature and use that instead. But I do recommend Abyssal because it's so cheap. And for your third item, it's going to be primarily the Abyssal Mask if you don't have it at this point. So there will be some games where you've got the Mercury Treads and you do go double armor. So let's say, for example, you went Iceborne, Merc Treads into Sunfire, right? Because they have mainly AD threats and their AP damage can do so well. But around this point where you're getting 3 items, their AP damage is going to be significant, so you do need an MR item, and you can go Abyssal in games where your teammates are playing well, right? You have useful AP threats, but you can go Gargoyle Stoneplate at this point. Now Gargoyle feels pretty good on Cassante because it's very easy to use it, right? If you use it after you ulti, when you're in your squishy form, right, they're going to be trying to burst you down. And of course that's a perfect time to pop this active item and block all that damage coming in. But there will be some situations where you go Force of Nature, where you need the movement speed and the damage reduction, let's say versus Cassiopeia, for example. But most of the time, 90% plus, it's going to be Gargoyles or Abyssal. But if you need an armor item from this point, let's say you already built a magic resist item second, then you can go Sunfire and Thornmail, like for the reasons we talked about before, and Randuin's in games where they have multiple crit threats. So if they have a Yasuo mid, Yone somewhere, an AD carry that's going to be building crit, of course Randuin's is going to give you a ton of value. And as for the 4th and 5th items, all the same reason for every single item, but you can go the Anathena's Chains in games where they have a 1 damage threat team comp. And I have put a full build example down the bottom for you to gain a bit of inspiration from, but for the most part, this is what it should look like, right? You're going to be having the Iceborne into either an armor or an MR item, depending on what you're up against. But by the time you have 3 items, you definitely need to have MR at this point, unless they have a full AD combo, of course, but most of the time that's not going to be the case. And then you're just going to be rounding it off with whatever item you need, right? If you need a bit of more magic resist, you can go Gargoyles. If you need more armor, you can go, Sunfire or Randuin. It really depends what comp you're up against. You just build what resist you need, and for the most part, your build will look a little something like that. Next up, we're going to be covering the laning phase, and there are a few very important concepts I want to teach you in regards to laning on Cassante, and the first one is going to be, you want to be prioritizing short trades, where even though later on in the game, when you're level 6 and when you have Iceborne, you do have some all-in threat, the majority of the lane is going to be around your short trading patterns, where you lead with Q auto, step away, you can even E away if they're going to retrade, and you just want to chip away at their HP lower and lower until they're at a threshold where you can punish. And right here, I have an example of Keen playing Cassante versus Gwen, where of course Gwen, you can imagine, has better all-in. She has Conqueror. Of course, once she has that stacked up, she's probably going to win an all-in, especially pre-6. So Keen really needs to play for the short trades. So I'll play out the VOD, where he's trying to even get a bit of damage down before the minions meet, because he knows Gwen needs time to stack up her Q before she can do any meaningful damage, and every time his Q's back up, he's looking to retrade again. Q auto, proc his grasp, but when his Q's on cooldown, as you can see, he is spacing the Gwen, not allowing her to damage him, and now she has 4 stacks, of course he's spacing it out, and his Q's on cooldown, right? He's walking away, he's playing around his Q cooldown, and looking to trade at that time, right? So even now, he hit his Q, and he stepped out of the middle part of Gwen's Q to avoid some damage, and took the short trade and stepped away, and yet again, every time he's taking these short trades, where he did take a bit more damage in that situation, but look at Gwen's HP. She is so low from these short trades, and even then, he had his Q and step back, because you don't have to commit to the auto attack every time. You can be satisfied with just getting the Q off and taking these really short trades, chipping away at their HP bar. And as you'll notice, Lee Sin comes and ruins our fun, he ruins the VOD, but just the way Keen has played out this early lane puts Gwen in a position where she's very easily punished, which is why his jungler comes up here, right? He's just been taking short trades this whole time, and he also has Doran's shield versus Doran's ring, so these trades, even though they look pretty similar, they are much more in Cassante's favor, and now Gwen is completely out of the game, right? Where even if Lee Sin didn't arrive, Keen has secured Prio, he's gotten way more favorable trades, and he's won this matchup based purely on the fact that he's taking these short trades. Moving on to our second concept, and this one is the most important in regards to getting solo kills in your lane as Cassante, and this is your general game plan for lane. And the general game plan is to freeze your wave outside of your tower and try to scoop your opponent underneath it. Because of course with Cassante you have Q3, you have your W, you have your ulti, it's very easy to get them onto the tower as long as you're able to hit your spells, and once they're there, if they take a couple tower shots, it's very easy for you to gain solo kills. And in this game, we have a Korean challenger Cassante up against the exact same Gwen. And I can't quite remember which Cassante this is because I watch every single VOD of Cassante from Korean Challenger recently, so I lost track. But he's still a good player, right? He's high elo in Korea, and he's up against the same Gwen. And in this game, he's taking short trades as well, just like Keen. But his trading is not going as well for him. Of course, he's not as good as Keen. You can't expect him to be. Keen's kind of built different, but he's trying to take short trades. He also got cheese, which is another factor. And in this game, the Gwen has learned from her mistakes. She doesn't want to get ganked by Lee, so she's respecting, right? She learned from her mistakes. But Cassante is still playing the lane out quite well. The wave is in a really good spot. Especially because, of course, you want to be trying to scoop your opponent under tower, but the problem with Cassante is he's basically ungankable later on to the game. Once you have some tank items, once you're level 6 onwards, very hard to gank this champion. But when you're level 1 to 3 with a Doran shield, that is a time where you can be punished. Where if you try to push up, there are a lot of situations where you can be punished from a gank, where if you did the same thing later on, right, once you have a bit of beef on you, some levels, level 6 especially, very hard for the jungler to kill you without wasting his time completely. And here he's just trying to keep this freeze, right? Keep it outside his tower, make himself ungankable, trade onto the Gwen, and he's trying to threaten scoops if he can. But most of the time, realistically, you're not going to be killing your opponent on Cassante pre-6. It's not going to happen unless they make a huge mistake. You just want to be taking short trades to give your jungler options, right? We saw in game 1, Keen took short trades and his Lee Sin took the option, and this game as well. You don't want to be avoiding trading and trying to scale till 6. You still want to be trading, but if your opponent dies to you, they're playing very poorly, so for the most part, you should be focused on killing your opponent level 6 onwards. Where even at level 5, to be honest, when you have 3 points in queue, you have a lot of windows to trade, but you can't really kill your opponent until 6. You can't force a solo kill unless they do something really wrong, right? A huge mistake, but you still want to be trading to give your jungler the option to punish him if he wants to. Where here, this guy's going to look to base soon. Of course, he's running low on HP, running low on mana. He doesn't want to hit level 6 on this timer, because it's very hard to scoop your opponent underneath when you're this low HP. He's going to look to base after this wave most likely, and he's going to pick up his Sheen. Like we talked about in the item section, really good first buy. I recommend it strongly in matchups like this, where if he bought, Null Magic Mantle, Ruby Crystal, he's going to get beat by this Gwen, but with Sheen, he has a lot of avenue to trade back, especially if he takes short trades, and now he's going to implement the game plan, where he TP's back purely to hold this freeze, right? Of course, he doesn't want to lose any minions as well, but as you can see, he's playing in a way to hold the freeze while also stopping the Gwen's base, which I think was really good. But his main point, even if he didn't stop Gwen's base, would have of course been to hold this freeze, because he wants the wave to be in this position once he hits level 6, so that he can throw in a solo kill. Because you can't really scoop your opponent, outside their tower. I have seen a lot of situations actually, when underneath their own tower, you can scoop them away from it and kill them, but if they're hugging the opposite wall, that's not going to happen, right? Where here, there's nowhere he can really stand, nowhere he can really hug to avoid being scooped under tower. He has to play it really well. Whereas you can see, he's trading aggressively, hits the W into a Q, into an ulti, and now he's brought this Gwen under tower. He's chained to CC extremely well, got her under tower, so now she can't trade back onto him. And if you hit into your game with this intention, if you're ever playing volatile matchups and you think, okay, I want to be freezing my wave outside my tower, if he goes for a CS, I'm going to try to scoop him underneath and look to all in him. You're going to be able to gain solo kills in your lane as well. Although this guy played it extremely well, he chained his CC quite well together. He even got auto attacks in between, quite clean, but he was up against a no flash Gwen, right? It's very easy to weave in autos when you're not worried about them flashing away. If you practice this with intention, you're going to be able to do it most of the time, because not a lot of people know how to play into SANTE, which is why the champion is such a high ban rate, right? Of course he's broken as well, but a lot of people hate versing this champion for this reason. For our next example, I have a recent solo queue game of mine where I'm playing SANTE versus Vayne, and the concept I want to be teaching you is how to play against ranged champs, where if you verse a ranged lane bully, champions like Teemo, Vayne, champs like Jace, you can't really look to kill them pre-6, right? Same as any other champ. You don't have a lot of all-in threat, but you can't really take short trades either. Where if I walked up to this guy and tried to Q auto him, he would chase me down, he'd proc his W, and the trade would not be in my favor. So versus a ranged lane bully, you want to play to minimize the damage they do to you before you can reach level 6. Because if you ever get behind in these matchups, right? Let's say he forces me to base when he has a freeze, or he, let's say I come back and I get ganked because I'm low HP. It's going to be very hard for me to all-in him if I'm level 6 versus 7, for example. But if I'm even, perfectly even, and I hit level 6, I have so much window to punish this guy. So many windows. And here, my Graves is even under attack because I don't get pushed in my matchup. But I'm not too worried about it, right? I do lean and I fake it out, right? I hold my W, pretend I'm going to go in, but I'm back to my minions. This is not my concern. I just don't want to lose XP. I do not want to get behind versus ranged champs, because if I can stay even by the time I'm level 6, it's going to be very easy for me to punish them. Where now Vayne can't get back to lane, unlucky for him, and I'm able to commit now, right? All of my minions that were under the tower are now dead. I've gained all the XP, so now I'm fine to commit to this play. I'm not saying never do anything, right? Don't just sit under your tower doing nothing until level 6, but the plan is different, where when we watch SANTE versus Gwen, you can Q auto E away, look for trades like that, but if you verse a champ like Vayne, that's not going to be the case, because if I ever try to do that to him, he can just chase me down the lane and do a lot more damage to me than I did to him. And here he's got his base off because he's a no TP champ, of course he has to, and now I'm going to be able to get a base off on my own. I'll skip forward a bit until I get back to lane, and of course I go chain vis in this game, where normally you can go Sheen, and that you could have gone Sheen if you wanted to in this game, but I'm up against Darius jungle, Vayne top, double AD, and also it is quite a hard matchup, I'll say, so having a chain vis never hurt anyone. And I'm not able to proc the Sheen that much, to be honest. I'd recommend Chain Vest if you could afford it as your first buy. Because the reason you don't want Bramble Vest, even though it could be good versus Vayne, right? I don't know if he's building Bork or not. And he also has some on hit with Cull. The reason you don't want to be going Bramble is because you want to get your Iceborne as soon as you can. And in this matchup, I might even need to go tier 2 boots. It really depends on how much gold I base on. But if I can get Iceborne in one shot, not in one shot, but if I can get Iceborne as soon as possible, there's not much Vayne can do against you, right? If he's stuck on the Iceborne slow, very easy for you to stick onto him. As you'll notice, I'm not looking to trade onto him that much. Of course, there's an opportunity. I got creep blocked there. He dashed forward, so I was able to trade onto him. I'm not doing literally nothing. I'm just not prioritizing trading aggressive until I'm level 6. And as you'll see here, I hit level 6 off the cannon, and now's my time. I instantly E forward. He cancelled my W. That was really well timed by him. I'm still looking, right? On my next queue, I'm going to do the same thing, and I'm going to look to abuse my level 6 window, where the second I hit level 6 there, I looked through it, but he timed his content perfectly, so respect to this guy. But as you can see, on my next W, I'm going to look to do the same thing, where I W in now and pop Q and then ulti and he's just dead, right? So easy if you're not behind at this point, if you're not low HP especially, where even, let's say I wasn't behind, let's say I did the first part of my lane all good, but I let him poke me down when I was level 5, I let him give me half HP or at 1/3 HP, I wouldn't be able to do that. But I was prioritizing staying high HP until I was level 6, and then the second I hit 6, that flipped the switch in my brain, alright, I really want to be all in this guy, I'm punishing him now, I'm high HP, I'm even XP, even CS, it's very easy for me to punish him on this level 6 timer. Now for our final example, we have Cassante up against Malphite, which I would classify as a very easy matchup. Now, the way you play out these matchups is quite different than what we talked about before, where we talked about the general game plan, right? Freezing outside your tower, looking to solo kill them. Versus a champion like Malphite or Ornn or Sion, that is not what you want to be doing. Because even if they're behind, even if they're 0-1, 0-2, it doesn't really change what they do. Their champion is still the same, they're still going to have similar amount of impact in the game, you're still going to get side lane push regardless of if you're 0-0 or not. So the way you want to be playing in these three matchups, the final concept, is you want to be playing to blow open the tower with Demolish. Now you do that by building big waves, like this guy's doing here on the screen, Korean Challenger player yet again, and you want to be proccing Demolish as much as you can. Where proccing Demolish 5 minutes is a luxury, you won't be able to do it every time, but past 5 minutes, that is when the tower loses its tankiness, right? The extra beef that it gains from being the top lane tower. Past 5 minutes, every Demolish proc you do, you can basically guarantee you a play most of the time. Where in this game, Cassante vs Malphite, he was able to proc it early on, and especially once he starts at 5 minutes onwards, he's going to really put on the pressure and break it down this tower. So here, he's just taking short trades, right? He's not trying to prioritize killing this Malphite at all, he's prioritizing stacking waves together and looking to play for Demolish procs, which is the general game plan, another general game plan I want you to have in these free matchups versus tanks. Because there's just no way playing to freeze outside your tower, deny Malphite or silence some XP, trying to solo kill them. That's not the highest chance of winning the game. You really want to be pressuring like this guy's doing here, right? Breaking the tower down. He's already got a plate at 4 minutes and 50, and by the end of this game, he does blow up the tower. A little bit of a spoiler alert, but this is the game plan I want you to be following. So we'll go through the VOD, we'll see what he does, the reason he was able to blow up the tower. Even though he's up against a good player, right? He's up against a Korean Challenger guy playing Malphite, not up against a bad player by any means, and he's still able to do so because his champion is so much stronger. So here again, so generally, you want to stack 2 waves before you hit the tower, but the exception, normally, is if you can just do a cannon wave and proc it, it's fine, because a cannon minion takes a lot longer to kill, it's very hard for Malphite to block it outside of his tower, but most of the time, if there's no cannon wave, you just want to stack 2 waves together. Where in this case, the enemy tower is 1 HP. So that's why he's just pushing this wave quickly, fast pushing it, because it only takes 1 auto attack, and he's going to get it from the minion damage regardless. And now he's going to look to probably base after this wave and spend the gold that's gained from the plates, and then it's really going to be on. Where this guy's played it extremely well at this point. But don't feel discouraged if you're playing Cassante vs Malphite or Sion or Ornn, and you don't have any tower plates by 6, even 7 minutes. It's fine. As long as you are playing for that, you're going to get it later on. The later the lane goes on, the better. Or of course not too late, right? Not past 14. But the later the lane goes on, the easier it is to break plates for you. And if you can get some damage down beforehand, like this guy has done, it's very easy for you to break the tower before even 10 minutes, before even 12. And this guy's built his huge wave yet again, and now it's going to be very easy for him to proc Demolish. That's all he cares about in this game, is blowing up this guy's tower. That is his main focus. He barely trades with this Malphite. Of course he does if it's free here, right? He is not taking any damage in response. Of course he took a tower shot there. But for the most part, he does not care about this Malphite. Malphite might as well be invisible to him. He only cares about blowing up this tower. So the reason I wanted to showcase this is I don't want you to go into every game tunneling on the solo kill on Cassante, just because he has a ton of solo kill threat. That's not the highest chance of winning the game. And here he's looking to play around Herald, right? Something I often teach to my students, something that's very important, because you don't want to be in a position where you're stomping your top matchup like this guy is doing, and the enemy jungler just jumps over the wall on Jarvan, sneaks to Herald, and now he can't really use your advantage to help the rest of the map. And here Malphite had a timer, punished mid, and it doesn't matter, right? He does not care what the top lane is doing. He just wants to blow open this tower, and eventually he's going to be able to blow up the whole thing. Where, if you're versus a better player, he's going to look to hold the wave outside the tower, right? This Malphite should be trying to do so. But even then, you're playing Cassante, you can scoop them back out, right? You can scoop them back towards you down the lane, get trades down. So versus Cassante, it's very hard to do that, which is why this champion is so good at blowing open towers if you're in a matchup that allows you to do so. And a huge reason why I recommend Demolish every single time, Shield Bash, or not Shield Bash, yeah, Shield Bash, just a massive bait. And as you can see, even though he's low, right, he only cares about this tower. It's actually pretty funny to watch, looking back, and eventually he's going to be able to get it. Now he's just going to finish off the tower, and I really wanted to showcase this VOD because I don't want you to tunnel on the general game plan every game, where of course if you verse a carry champion like Gwen, champs like Jax, Fiora, it's really good to play for the solo kill. A 0-2 Gwen or a 0-2 Fiora, much less impactful than, 0-0 high CS champion of the same type, of course, but versus a champ like Malphite or Sion, Sejuani, just a tank neutralizing champion, doesn't really matter that much if you solo kill them. It's more beneficial for you to break the tower as soon as possible so that you can spread your champion's power to the rest of the map. Up next we have abilities and combos, and starting with Cassante's Q, it is essentially a straight line skill shot that's going to be stacked up to 3 times, and if you hit them it's going to slow them and give you access to your passive. Where your passive is going to give you extra attack range, extra damage, and you can stack up this Q on anything. You can stack it on minions, jungle camps, enemy champs, it doesn't matter. As long as you hit something, you're going to be able to stack it. And on the third stack, the third Q, after hitting 2 successful Qs, the third one is going to shoot out another straight line skill shot that's going to knock your opponent up and pull them towards you. So it's a very useful spell, one of the key parts of Cassante's kit, and it's going to be your main trading skill in lane. Now, Cassante's Q does have a bit of a cast time, so you can actually use that to Q flash. You can Q and flash together, and it's a lot harder for them to dodge than flash Q. The problem is recently they removed the ability to Q flash with your third Q, the knockup, so it's not as useful as it was before, but it's still something you should know about. Now, Cassante's kit is quite smooth in general. It's very easy to cancel your auto attacks with spells if you time it correctly, and his Q is no exception. We can actually cancel your auto attack animation with Q, and it makes it a lot smoother, more smoother overall. Also, utilizing auto Q auto feels quite smooth. You can even start the combo off with E to get into range to get your first auto attack, but auto Q auto in general feels quite smooth to use. Now we touch on Cassante's Q3, the huge knockback ability, very important part of his kit, but a lot of people I see make this mistake where they just throw it out in general when it's up. They feel like, oh, my Q's about to time out, I better use it, but the enemy champion is respecting, so you're not going to hit them anyway, you're just throwing it for the sake of it. The problem in this is that you're making it so you have to stack 2 more Qs before your third Q's up, right? But if you let the Q time out, it's not going to go on cooldown, of course, so you can start stacking the next Q3 straight away. And we touched on it at the start, but it's a very important part of Cassante's kit, where after you hit your Q, you're going to gain extra attack range on your next auto, which is very important for trading in lane, spacing your opponent, and proccing your grasp and winning these short trades. Now, because this Q has a cast time before it can be used, you can actually buffer this through CC, where just before you're about to be hit by the stun, the knock-up, it doesn't matter. If you time your Q, you're going to get the Q off, the damage to the knockback, even if you have Q3 up, whilst you're CC'd. Now, the speed in which your Q comes out is actually increased by the amount of bonus HP you have. So there's a threshold, I'll put it on the screen now, but the more HP you have essentially up to a cap, the faster your Q is going to come out. And another tip in terms of using your Q3 is you can actually use it to knock people over walls. Granted, the wall has to be quite thin and it has to be right next to it, but there are still some situations where you can utilize this. And another very important tip with the Q is once you have your Q3 stacked up, if you ulti, you're actually going to lose your stacks. Which is very important because you used to be able to do that, so a lot of Cassantes still make this mistake, but if you ult someone whilst you have your Q up, you're going to lose that Q3 stack, so it's better to use your Q3 before you ulti if you can. Moving on to Cassante's W. Now this spell is extremely overpowered in my opinion. It's essentially a channel that's going to give you a ton of damage reduction, an insane amount of reduced incoming damage. It's going to block any CC that they use onto you, and at the end of it, the end of the channel, or when you release it early after a second, you're going to be able to dash towards somebody, knocking them back. And Cassante's W is another spell you can cancel an auto attack animation with a W, and something you really need to keep in mind is that after your W, after you use it, you're not going to be attacking your opponent. Even if you have auto attack on, even if you've been hitting them beforehand, you start channeling W, you really need to manually right click them. Now, it might be pretty straightforward, but I still see a lot of Cassantes make this mistake against me, where they W me, push me away, and then they're just standing there like a headless chicken not utilizing their auto attacks. And a cool little trick you can do with its W is the direction your mouse is when you press your W is the way Cassante is going to be facing, right? He's going to have his shield up, he's going to be, squaring up, ready to charge, but you can move your mouse. You can choose where to go at the end of the channel. So some people will think you're going to be dashing towards them, but you're going to be running away, and vice versa. And the final tip with the W is at the end of the knockback duration, it's also going to stun your opponent. Now you have plenty of time between the stun of the W and using your ulti that you can get an auto attack in between the W stun and the R duration where they can't flash away. Moving on to Cassante's E, it is a dash that gives you a shield, and if you're dashing to an ally, you're going to gain extra range. You're going to be able to dash a further distance, and if you're dashing to an ally, you can also get over a wall with it, where if you just dash normally, it's going to be shorter and you won't be able to clear terrain. Keep in mind, you can also E to an allied minion, which is very important for your laning phase, because the extra range is going to allow you to gain a lot more trades. And in terms of mechanic, the E can be used as an auto attack reset, so you're able to auto attack E auto, and it's going to feel very smooth to get your damage off. Moving on to Casante's ultimate. Now this spell is going to push your opponent back, and if they're next to a wall, you're going to bring them through that terrain. And you can clear some pretty big walls. You can clear any wall in the game with it, even no matter how big the wall is, and you're going to bring your opponent with you to the other side. Now, when you use your ultimate, you enter basically Casante's second form. Now, to break it down, in your second form, you're a lot more squishy than the first form. Pretty sure you lose about half HP and 80% of your resistances, which means you're a lot more easier to kill, so I recommend in team fights especially, not using this at the very start of the fight if you can avoid it. But also, you're going to be gaining a lot more damage, right? You're going to gain more attack speed, your Q is going to come out faster, and also your spells will reset. Not every single spell, but the cooldown of your Q and your W is going to reset, and the new W in this new form, it's not going to push them back, it's not going to stun them, but it's going to be doing a lot more damage. You're going to be able to charge it up faster, you move faster, basically. The whole form is just a lot more quicker, more smooth, more damage, but you are a lot more squishy overall. Now, a cool way you can use your ultimate is to actually escape from an unfavorable situation, where you can knock somebody back with your W, your Q3, towards a wall and ulti them away, and then you can escape the rest of the enemy team. Now, once you use your ultimate, no matter how big the wall is, even if you're appearing to the other side of the map, you know, one of those really thick walls, your camera is going to follow you automatically, so you don't really need to manually do it. Another benefit when you're in your ulti form is you can actually now E over terrain. Now, you used to be able to by jumping to a teammate, but now you don't need to rely on those guys. You can E over walls regardless, and you can get through some pretty big walls. You can get through the Raptors wall, Red Buff wall, even some river walls. There's a lot of walls you can clear, and the spell is extremely useful for chasing or getting away from somebody when you're in your ulti form. Now, a pretty key tip I can give you in terms of your ulti is once you've casted it and you've entered the damage Casante form, the cooldown has not yet started ticking. You're not going to be able to start the cooldown to your next ulti until you press R again. You can actually recast R to drop into the tank form. Now this is very useful in team fights, where you can press R again to become tank form if they're, piling onto you, or you can just use it when the fight's done and you want to be recalling, where I still see a lot of Casantes recall in the damage form, but that's a complete waste because you're wasting the cooldown until your next R is going to be up. And one of the only other downsides, apart from being a lot squishier, is your Q no longer slows. Once you're in your ulti form, your Q doesn't slow anymore, but that doesn't really matter. It's still very easy to stick on your opponent, especially when you have Ice Spawn. You don't really need to slow, it's just something you should know. And the final tip for using your ulti is you can actually use it to block CC, where let's say for example you're about to be hit by a Mordekaiser E, if you start your ulti channel before the E hits you, you're going to negate the effects of that crowd control. Moving on to combos, and I'll start with the easiest insect combo, where you're going to be leading with Q3, into Eing behind them W, into R. You're going to be chaining your R and your W together. You can even weave in an auto attack between them if you're keen, if you feel like you can before they dash away. And then after you use your ulti, you just lead with QAA, WAA, and you just look to beat them down once you've already insect towards your tower or towards your team. And the second and third combo, extremely similar, but if they're putting up a bit more resistance, right, spacing out your Q, you're going to lead with E into Q3, and you're going to be walking past them into W auto attack R, and then you just, chase them down. Q auto attack, W auto attack, where you want to be cancelling your auto attack animation with spells, and your spells have auto attacks. This champion feels really smooth, and I recommend practicing the combos in Training Tool, because if you can cancel your auto attacks and your spells quite cleanly, you're going to be able to increase your DPS by a lot. And the insect combo, if you have Flash, is of course to EQ3, and then Flash W instantly. Flash W, auto attack R, and then it's the same, auto attack Q, auto attack W. But the most important part is the millisecond, you see your Q3 hit them, you can just flash behind them and start your W channel, so you have a lot of time to insect them before they can flash away. Now, common trading combos in lane we talked about before, we want to be Q auto attacking and walking backwards, so that they can't retrade onto you until your next Q is up. Or if they're respecting your Q range, you E to a minion, Q auto attack and step back again, and if you do it quick enough, you can still utilize your shield if they retrade onto you. Now, before I touch on any more combos, it's very important you get into the habit, especially in lane, but in teamfights as well, to chain CC your abilities together, namely your Q3 and your W. You want to be using your W to guarantee a Q3 hit, or you want to be using your Q3 to hit a W, right? You want to be using these spells together. It doesn't really matter which one. It depends on what you can hit at the time, but you really want to be making sure one allows you to hit the other so they can't dash away or dodge, especially if they have a spell that they can dash or dodge away. It's really important you chain these spells with the right timing so that they can't get away from it. Carrying on with the combos, normally in lane, right, the most standard way to play out the lane, if they're respecting your Q range, is you want to be queuing, stacking your Q on the minion, and then when you have your third Q up, you E to a minion, hit the Q3 onto them, auto W, auto like that. That's how you want to be trading a lot of the time, utilizing your Q3, chain CC. But if you're versus an opponent that's a little bit better, a little bit smarter, as soon as you have your Q3, he's going to respect. He's going to space back and wait for it to run out or wait for you to use it. So the way to counteract that is you really want to be stacking your first Q on a minion. And once you have that stacked, once your second Q is up, if you feel like you're in a position where you can win a longer trade instead of a short trade, you can E onto them, E to a minion, get near them, Q2, auto attack, and then start channeling your W. And if you hit your W, then your Q3 is guaranteed. So they don't see that your Q3 is up until they're already stunned by the W, so it guarantees the fact that you can hit all of your spells. Moving on to the max damage combos. Now, there are a lot of combos we can chain your CC in well, and it's not max damage. So for these ones, I recommend utilizing the auto attacks that I'm going to be talking about once you have Iceborne Gauntlet. Because once you have Iceborne, it's very easy for you to weave in your auto attacks. Even though the stun is going to wear out from previous spells, you're still going to be able to hit your future spells because they're going to be so slowed by the Iceborne, which is a big reason why the spell is so good. This item is so good. But keep in mind, early game, you don't have Iceborne. You know, they have gap closers, they have parry, they have dashes. So trying to do a max damage combo all the time, you know, can have some bad results. But just as a max damage combo, we'll go through it anyway in case you're up against someone with no flash or once you have Iceborne and they can't really get away from you. So the first combo is going to be leading with Q3. So Q3 into AA into EAA. So auto attack EAA, cancel their animation, and then you're going to start with W, start channeling your W, auto attack right after between using your W and your R, like we talked about before. And after your ulti, you want to start with Q straight away. It is faster to Q after using ulti than it is to auto attack. So your ulti into Q instantly, and of course the Q cooldown will reset after using ulti, and then you're going to auto attack after that, plus W, plus auto attack after that, and then you just chase them down with Qs and autos. So to break down that combo, the most important part of it is after you ulti, you have to really make sure you lead the spell with Q into auto attack straight away. I still see some Cassantes ulting and then Wing straight away, which there are some times where that's good, don't get me wrong. So let's say for example, if there's a Mordekaiser, where I had a game recently where this happened, where I ultied him and he ulted me instantly, which is why I use my W, because you can use your ulti to block a lot of CC, especially Mordekaiser ulti, so if you can do so, you can lead with W, but if you're not going to be blocking a key crowd control ability after you ulti on a Q, AA instantly, before you even think about using your W. Up next, we're going to be covering the matchups, and something you might notice right off the bat is there's not a single champion in the hard column, and that's just because Cassante doesn't really have any lanes that are borderline unplayable, very difficult compared to other champions. So when I've made lists in the past, for example, if you're playing Jace from the Jace guide, Malphite is a very hard matchup regardless of your elo. And same with, let's say you're playing Akshan, haven't really made a guide of him, but if you're playing Akshan versus Jax, that matchup is very difficult, and as for Cassante, there's no champion where the matchup is just very, very hard. There are matchups that are not in your favor, of course they're in that column, but if I were to put champions in hard, so let's say for example you're learning the champion, you're unfamiliar in the matchups, Gwen through to Riven would be a hard matchup for me if you're just starting out. Because let's say, for example, Riven, if you're unfamiliar with the matchup, her level 1 with Ignite has so much threat against you, it's very hard for you to play into that. But if you can just neutralize, keep that lane even to around level 5, level 6, once you have some armor, it's going to be very easy for you. And I won't say easy for you, I'll say it's still in Riven's favor slightly until you get Iceborne, but for the most part, these matchups are difficult. They're not in your favor, but they are not in a hard column. I wouldn't put them as a hard column compared to I have with other champions in the past. So I guess we won't need to start in the hard column, we'll jump straight to opponent favored. And as for Gwen, this matchup is very hard for you later on into the game, and even the early lane, it's still in Gwen's favor, the matchup, but you can win it. Luckily we showed some examples in the laning section, where if you take very short trades against a champion, against Conqueror Gwen, and get it to a low enough HP threshold, you can play for ganks, and you can also play to scoop her under the tower and play for kills. There are still avenues for you to win this matchup, but in terms of pure 1v1, in terms of trading, if she respects all of your timers to scoop her to the tower, and just plays for extended trades, it's going to be very difficult for you. And same for Olaf and Darius, they really hard win the all-in trades, but if you take very short trades, you know, if they walk towards you, Q auto step away with your E, you're going to be able to win these matchups. You can block Darius E with your W, of course, quite hard to react to, but if you can do so, you have avenues to win these lanes, they are just difficult. Now, moving into the skill matchup tier, basically every champion in this tier, in my opinion, if you can get to Iceborne unscathed, you will completely destroy them. Now, there are some variables, of course, a champ like Rumble, you don't really want to be straight rushing Iceborne, you need to get Merc Treads as well, but for the most part, if you verse a champ like Renekton, Jax, Camille, and you get Iceborne and you're still even with them, it's very hard for them to do anything to you. You can just space them if you play mechanically quite well, you know, if you're good with your comboing, utilizing the Iceborne slow, it's very hard for them to ever touch you on the side until they scale, right? So Camille starts to get 2 or 3 items, then she can beat you. But in terms of laning, you should be able to at least win these matchups early, or at the very least go even until Iceborne when you really start to put on the hurt. So to give an example of one of these matchups, we already showcased the Vayne matchup in the laning section of the guide, but we'll go with Jax, where this is a skill matchup. You can space him with your Q and auto attack, but if he can get onto you by walking, from a bush, getting behind you, starting the combo with auto attack, holding his Q, start a stun, there's a good chance he can win the trade. But you can dodge his E with your E, you can block it with W. If you outplay him in this matchup, you can get very favorable trades for yourself as long as you're spacing him and keeping distance, not allowing him to beat you down. The other example we'll use is Pantheon, where in this matchup, he is going to destroy you early game. That's just reality. He's probably going to have Ignite on Pantheon, he has so much damage, but if you can mitigate his early damage, play respectfully, stay high HP, you might even need to give a couple CS, but if you can stay high HP, get to the point where, you've got 800 gold, get your Chain Vest, then you can look to win trades. Level 5, level 6 with Chain Vest, you'll eventually have a timer where you have a wave outside your tower, and you look to abuse that, right? The game plan we talked about before, and once you have a Chain Vest, you're going to be blocking a lot of his damage, and it's a lot easier for you to win an all-in. Now, as for the Cassante-sided matchups, I don't want you to go into these thinking, alright, it's in my favor, let me just bully him level 1, right? You still want to be having discipline, like we talked about in the laning section, taking these short trades, Q auto, space back, and you mainly look for kills later on, around level 6, scoop them into your tower. Even though these matchups are in your favor, it's still unrealistic to solo kill someone pre-level 6 on Cassante. It's possible, I've definitely seen it before multiple times, it's just very rare and you shouldn't be playing for that. If they give you the opportunity, of course take it, but you don't want to be overextending yourself, for example letting the Rengar or the Tryndamere get a very extended trade, beat you down, because you're playing disrespectfully early game, when you know your main timer to punish him is after your first base around level 5 to 6. And as for the range champs in this tier, Teemo and Akshan, champs like that, it's going to be a very similar game plan than what we showed before when I was up against a Vayne, where you want to be playing to not be punished early game, right? Staying high HP, getting CS is pretty similar in a lot of matchups as Cassante, but especially versus range champs. If you can get level 6, especially if you can get tier 2 boots on your first recall, it's going to be very easy for you to punish them on your level 6 timer. Now, as for the easy matchups, a lot of these are matchups like we talked about before, where you don't really want to be playing to kill them, you want to be blowing up their tower. If you're up against a Maokai or an Ornn or a Shen, killing them doesn't really stop their identity, right? It doesn't stop what they want to be doing in the game. Blowing up their tower definitely does, right? It's going to allow you to impact the game a lot sooner, a lot more room in the side lane to use, but there are some variables, right? There's champions like Yasuo in here, where you just outright beat him. He could look to cheese you level 1 with lethal tempo, level 2, but if you can get a base off, get Chain Vest, even if you get Sheen, it doesn't really matter. These matchups are just so easy, but I just recommend not playing too disrespectfully early if you're unfamiliar in these matchups. Up next, we're going to be covering the mid game, and essentially on Cassante, in the mid game, you want to be a part of as many team fights and skirmishes as you can, because even though your champion is so strong in the side lane, he does a bit of everything, right? He's strong in team fights, skirmishes, and side lane, you're not using your side lane power to gain your advantage that way. A champion like Jax or Fiora, for example, if you're playing side lane and your team gets caught out and you're able to break tier 2, that's sweet, that's good for you. But on Cassante, that's not the case. You take towers very slowly, and the gold you gain, although it's nice, it's not going to be as nice as being a part of these team fights, being the difference maker, especially early on into the game. You really come online with your ice spawn spike, so you want to be abusing that to take over the game, especially in the mid game. And here, in this example, from a recent solo queue game of mine, I haven't had time to push my top wave all the way into tier 2, right? I haven't even broken the tier 1 yet, so I just clear one wave and I fall down to this dragon. I felt like a fight would break out, and I was able to be a part of it, although I wasn't really the difference maker in this fight. I was there, and I stopped them from being able to 5v4 my team, because I didn't greed. I didn't greed for the extra top waves, I didn't greed to break the top tier 1 and give myself gold. I knew it's better for my champion to be a part of that team fight. And now the reason I went straight bot right after this dragon is because you want to be playing on the side lane opposite of the next objective. This is going to be true most of your games. The only exception is if you have a mid laner who does better on the side. So let's say you had a Hull Breaker Yone mid, I've seen that build pop up recently, then of course it's fine for him to be on the opposite side, but for the most part this is where you want to be. So if they try to collapse onto you, you're right, your team can get an objective while you buy time, or even here, where in this example I get pushed in side lane, which on Iceborne Cassante should be true most of the time, unless you're very far behind, and then I get push, I want to use my push to create a situation where it frees myself up to go to Herald, right? Where, of course, this Jace is answering me, I'm creating a numbers advantage, that's okay, but the main point of me being here is to make it so I don't have to deal with the side wave. I want to push the wave under tower and fog up to the Herald, because I don't want to have to deal with it. Because if I just let the wave be even, or one wave towards my tower, and I fogged up towards Herald, there's a chance this really behind Jace takes the bot tier 2. But now that I've just cleared the wave as fast as I can and rotated up, I'm able to make this play mid, I'm able to punish the enemy team, and I'm not losing anything bot in response, where even if the Jace didn't TP here, and he kept pushing bot, he wouldn't even reach my bot tier 2 before I got back to it. So the main point, the main takeaway, is you want to be deploying opposite side of the next objective, and you want to be using the waves. You just want to be removing the waves as an equation, right? You don't want to have to think about, oh, if I roam up mid, there's a chance he gets my bot tier 2. Don't want to be giving You don't want to be giving your tier 2s because you're so strong in side lane as well. You can beat most champs, especially at ice spawn. That just means you use that power to make them react to, make them stuck under the tower if you can. But for the most part, you're just neutralizing the wave so you don't have to deal with it while you make your own play for your team. And now you'll notice I've deployed straight top outer base because I want to be playing opposite side of the next objective, where Dragon and Baron are spawning at a similar time in this game, but the reason I went top instead of bot is because we don't really want to rush Baron on spawn this game. We don't do it that fast. Of course, Vayne does it quite quickly, but that's the only champ, and they've buffed Baron recently. It's very tanky, and there's no way the enemy team can play for it, so in this game, ideally, we want to be playing for the Dragon next, which is why I'm top, and now I'm just putting the wave in a state where I don't have to deal with it, right? I don't want to be beaten down this tower. This is a mistake by me thinking about it. I kind of wanted it in the game, but looking at the VOD back, right, I don't want to be playing for that tower. I want to be fogging down here. And of course you can take the free tower if it's good, but here it's not, right? I can't take it in front of this Yone blindly. He's not very weak, this mid Yone, and I'm just using my pressure. Look, I'm taking over the enemy jungle. I'm making it so Kai'Sa can't play the game, burning her flash. And in this game, Kai'Sa was their strongest member. I'm pretty sure they stomp bot. You can see my Vayne is 1 and 4, but I'm not allowing her to play the game. I'm not allowing her to play aggressive mid to push using my pressure, right? I'm not using my pressure to give myself an advantage in the side. I'm using it to impact the rest of the map. Well, my next example is from a very recent solo queue game of mine, and I really wanted to showcase this one because it shows what to do in a situation where your team is not listening, right? Where, of course, we talked about what the ideal macro is from that last game, but in this game, my team is not listening, right? They're not playing around what I want to be playing around. They're not going to the correct lanes, which is very realistic for solo queue. Everyone has a different idea of how to play out the game, so you really need to be the one to adapt. You don't want to be, complaining or being frustrated that's not working. Of course, sometimes I am as well, right? Everyone is. You just need to adapt to what's happening on the screen. We're here, Zed goes to bot, which is the lane I want to be in, because I want to be opposite side of the next objective, which is Herald, because they've already taken Dragon on this timer. I'm just popping into C, but I really want to be bot on this timer. But Zed has another idea, he wants to be bot as well, and granted, I could have been more forceful. I could have pushed, told him to go away, told him this is mine, I really need this lane, which I would have done if he was on a more vulnerable champ. So if he was playing a champ like Cinder or Ori, and we're playing around Herald, they're going to die in the side lane almost every time. They are a free kill. But he's playing Zed, right? He's a 200 CS Zed, he's quite fed, so I wouldn't say I trust him, but I'm pretty sure he's not going to die. I'm pretty sure he's going to be fine down there. So I just adapt and go top. Where, let me make that very clear. If he was a champ that I thought would die in side lane, I would force him away. I would take it over, I'll just go into lane and hit minions, ping him away, because that's really important for me to be there, because he's just a guaranteed kill, right? We can play for Herald, but they're just going to go kill him on the other side. So here, my Karma gets caught as well. Very, very realistic to solo queue. I think he was off for all support. And now I want to be flying for this Herald, but my team doesn't want it, right? Musty's in the wrong place. Kai'Sa's not coming. It's very realistic to solo queue, but I'm just adapting. I can't push out top anymore without them collapsing onto me, and I'm just taking over outside of the jungle. And look, they come into our jungle, they're trying to fight me, but I know I'm very tanky. I can absorb all their damage, and it's very easy for us to win this fight. So I really like this example because Zed took my lane, my support got caught, Musty was on the wrong side of the map. Everything that's very realistic to solo queue happened, but I adapted to what was happening on the screen, and I did the best play I could with in the situation that I was put in. Next, we're going to be covering team fighting. In my opinion, team fighting is one of the hardest parts about mastering K'Sante because you just have so many options. There are so many things you can do on this champion that it's hard to know what your role should be from fight to fight or game to game. Where the baseline that I want you to follow is you are not primarily a diving or a flanking champion. You're one of the best peelers and front lines in the entire game, so you really need to be utilizing this where, let's say you flank and you take someone out of the fight, or even, ult someone away, you're robbing your own team of you. This really powerful champ, this great front line, so you need to be playing as a front line that allows your backline to play the game. So a good way to help with that is to mark people in your mind, where a great example is when you versus Rakan, he's going to start his combo with R, right? He has to R before he Ws, they've made that change. So when you see him R and run towards your AD carry, you can just knock him away. You can R him away, chain or W, and you're going to be keeping your AD carry alive. And you can do that versus Irelia Talon. There's so many diving champions whose job is to kill your backline, and you can be the difference maker between them living or dying. So another tip that I'm going to showcase in this example is you don't want to be using your ulti early. Your ulti makes you squishy, of course. You want to be starting the fight peeling, starting the fight keeping people from killing your AD before you switch forms and look to just decimate the backline. So in this example, we have Harmon Life Rooster, great name by the way, playing K'Sante in Korean Challenger, and he's playing to keep his ADC alive. Even though his AD is playing Xayah, his job is to allow his AD carry to do damage. So here he's spaced between the enemy team and the Xayah, and now he's just trying not to take too much free damage. He does take a little bit, and he's just looking for his opportunity. Now, the Rel has used his engage tool, so he knows, okay, my Xayah and my Graves don't have to deal with this champ anymore, so it's a lot easier for me to go in now. the hard engage has been used, so I'm not too worried for my backline anymore. And then he uses that timer to flash ulti onto the Jinx and just kill her. And I shouldn't have recorded this in 2 times, that's on me. But for the main point of this fight is he didn't just dive onto the backline, he didn't try to flank. He waited until their hard engage tools were down and he knew his backline was safe before he went in and made his own plays on their backline. For my next example, we have a very similar concept from a recent solo queue game of mine, where my team is rushing down the Baron. So of course they're divers, they're pretty strong Kassadin, and Lee Sin is trying to kill my backline and stop the Baron. And here I'm just completely marking this Kassadin. I'm using my Iceborne slow, Q3, my W. He cannot participate in this game. He cannot get anywhere near my backline. And champs like that, diving champs, most of the time, they're not going to do much damage to tanks. Kassadin, Irelia, Talon, all of these champs are made to kill squishies, to burst down squishies. They can't really do much to you, especially in the early to mid game. Maybe once they get 4 or 5 items they can, but for the most part you're going to be able to stop them and there's nothing they can do about it. And then once you know your backline is safe, once all the primary spells are used, that's when you look to pop ulti and dive onto the backline and make your own play. And for my final example, I wanted to showcase that there are going to be variables in the game. There's not always going to be the way we can play the team fight like we talked about before, where you play this front to back style, marking their divers, trying to keep your backline live. There's going to be situations where that's not possible. And here I have an example from Korean Challenger yet again, where his AD carries just died, he got caught, and he's not even going to be a part of this fight. But he still sees an opportunity to carry this team fight in a different way, where he pops TP flank from behind, and he's able to remove the feathers there completely from this team fight. Now, even though his AD carry is not here, he still sees a way to carry in a different way, because that's Cassante, right? You have so many options. He's able to bring this Azef through the wall, chase after him, kill him down 1v1, even though he's as strong as Azef. He's able to carry this team fight in a different way than the stock standard, so I really want you guys to keep that in mind, where the standard way to play Cassante, like we talked about, is going to do you right, upwards of 80% of the time, but you really need to know, you need to be aware of when the variables are. And here, of course, his AD carry is dead, he's got a good TP flank, all the stars are aligned for him to make this play, and you need to be willing to see these angles yourself once you get more experience with Cassante. Up next, we'll be covering Cassante's identity and the mindset you should have while playing this champion. And a very key part to this champion's identity is that you're the ultimate peel tank. You're the shield for your team, because playing a diving champion into a Cassante that knows what he's doing is a nightmare. If you try to play a champ like Jax or Irelia versus Cassante, he's just going to peel you off and stop you from doing what you want to do. And if you try to dive into his backline, you're going to get chain CC'd, you're going to be killed by the backline. It's going to be very hard for you to play. But that means that Cassante needs to know his role in the fight, where you can't just be diving onto their backline. If you try to kill their AD carry, take him out of the fight, you're going to be leaving your backline exposed, and you're going to be more valuable most of the time than the guy you're taking out of the fight, as long as you're not far behind, right? There can be some games where you're super far behind and you take someone out, make the fight a 4v4, but for the most part, you're going to be this ultimate frontline for your team, peeling off the divers and allowing your backline to do damage. SANTE is also one of the strongest blind picks in the game, and in my opinion, the strongest tank blind pick, because there's no matchup where they can guarantee advantage against you. So let's say you play every matchup and both of you pilot your champions at a 5 out of 10. Let's be realistic. There's no champion that is guaranteed to gain a noticeable advantage against you. At the very least, if you're versing a champion like Olaf, maybe Darius, they may gain a 10 or 20 seriously, but there is no champion that can just completely shut you down, make the lane unplayable. You're just such a safe blind pick and you're always going to be useful in the game. Now, as Cassante, you also have so many options in team fights that it can be very overwhelming knowing what to do. So what I recommend is you review every single team fight you play in a game, and you write down what you should have done, what you should be doing differently next time, based on how the team fight went, what the champions are in the game. Because you'll find so many times there are ways you could have played the team fight better on this champion, because you have so many options. It's almost impossible to play every team fight perfectly, in a game. There's going to be times where you over peel, you over dive, leave your backline exposed, or you're just wasting time peeling off someone useless. You really need to be reviewing and writing down and figuring out the best way for you to play team fights at Cassante consistently, and figuring out a formula that works for you. Now, we touch on this part a lot in the mid-game section, but it's very important that you use your side lane power not to gain a side lane advantage. You're not trying to eat the enemy camps, you're not trying to break the tower, kill someone 1v1. You're using your side lane strength to neutralize the wave, where you don't have to deal with it anymore. So to give an example, let's say you're up against a Fiora, and you have Iceborne Bramble Vest versus Cassandra. You're going to beat him. You're going to beat him if you just don't take a straight outright 1v1, right? As long as you're even XP. So you're going to be using your side lane push at that timer to keep him under the tower, basically, if you can. But you don't even need to. You want to be using the side lane push to get rid of the wave. You don't want to be dealing with it. You want to be pushing the wave past even, so that you can group up with your team, force a 5v5 situation around a neutral objective, and utilize your team fight power. And the last point is a bit of a reiteration to the teamfight section, but you are just the ultimate shield for your team. You're the ultimate frontline, ultimate tank, ultimate peeler. You're a 80 carries dream. If I was playing a champion like Jinx or Aphelios and I had a good Cassante on my team, the game is just 10 times easier to play. Because if you play with a bad Cassante, he dives onto the enemy 80 carry, and you're up against, let's say, Diana or Rakan, very hard for you to play. But if Rakan is blocking those champions from approaching, not allowing you to, and they try to dive onto, he's going to be CCing them the whole time. You're going to be able to DPS for free, and it's going to be very easy for your backline to play their role if you understand your identity on this champion. Up next, we'll be doing a full game review where I talk you through my full process throughout this entire game and help you just gain a better understanding of how to play Cassante throughout various parts of the game. And here I'm up against a Mordekaiser where he does have avenues to win this matchup, but I would still call this one a Cassante favored lane because you can actually block Mordekaiser ulti with your W, and if you time it well so you do that every time, there's just no way he can look to kill you, so I would classify this one as Cassante sided. So if you're in a lower elo bracket, of course, where the Cassantes are not able to react to the Mod W, he does have chances to kill you. Where now he's using his spells and I'm able to get push in this matchup where even though I said before, game plan of course, right, freezing outside your tower, looking to poke them in, if you can get push in a matchup, it can be good because you're going to be getting levels up before them, you can look to poke them down, and it's pretty unrealistic to scoop someone onto your tower before you have your ulti, right? There's not much point looking to do that level 1 and 2, and I miss a cannon there, that's unlucky. I'm just looking to take short trades against this guy. He's still a Conqueror Ignite Mord, I don't want to take extended all-ins, and I'm going to look to punish him. We're looking like the first game of the day, missing some Qs, but for the most part the lane is going exactly how I would want it to go. Where I just want to be taking short trades, poke him, and look, I can scoop him out from underneath his tower, bring him back with W, make him take my minions, and now I'm in a position where I can look to kill him. And I choose to 1-for-1 here, because he's an Ignite Mord. He can't TP back and get any of these minions, so I'm going to be gaining a huge XP advantage just from trading 1-for-1. And now I'm going to look to get my Sheen, hopefully, nice, and come back to the lane, and I'm going to choose to hold my TP. Where, normally, you could use your TP when you reverse an Ignite champ because I've already gained my big advantage and the wave is coming back towards me. I don't need to. I can save it for a later date. And now you'll notice I'm thinking about getting the protein item, getting Jackshot with protein, but I decided against it because Iceborne is just so much stronger on Cassante that even though for my lane, versus an AP champion, of course building MR is better, but the spike of Iceborne is just so much stronger, so I don't care about the 1v1 in particular. And now I'm looking to let the wave come back in towards me, like we talked about, and scoop him under my tower. That's the general game plan on Cassante, and even though it may vary, for the most part that is how you get your kills in lane. And here I make a mistake where I try to dodge his E with my E and I mess up, so I take a pretty big trade, right? Which is a big mistake on my end, but it's not the end of the world. I still have Doran Shield, second wind. I'm going to be able to regen it all back for the most part, and now I'm just going to look to scoop him near my tower with my Q. And the lane is just going to be at a stalemate until I get level 6. Now I'm just looking to hold this freeze if I can, but I cannot. He's blocking me, and I'm going to get level 6 pretty soon. I'm even pinging for Shaco to come. I think I drop a lot of pings here because this guy's free, right? A no flash level 5 mod. This is a great time for him to come. But I accept reality, right? Shaco chooses not to come. Shaco chooses Grump and Wolves. Of course, he's a jungler. That's okay. I just gave him the option, and now I'm just need to play for 6 because he's going to get level 6 before me. He's pushing the wave in, so I just need to respect that timer. But once I'm level 6, I can look to kill him myself. Not much is going to happen for a little bit. He's got a big wave coming towards me. It's going to be pretty hard for me to all-in him on this timer. But once I've cleared all these minions, and my wave is going towards him, then I can look to take my short trades, get him lower and lower, and eventually look to solo kill him. But there's no rush, right? There's no rush to kill him. You're still going to be an amazing champion team fights anyway. So I'd rather you lean towards the side of not punishing your lane than getting punished yourself if you had a choice. But of course here, I've got the choice to do both, right? I can't get punished and I can look to punish him. But in this timer, he's stronger than me. I'd have to block his ulti with my W, which of course I can. But he's still stronger on this timer. I need to play well. I need to take short trades first, get him lower and lower. I'm not just going to all-in him from full HP like this, right? Great trades, short trades, blocking the damage with his E, and now I can abuse the fact that I held my TP from earlier. But you'll notice I'm going Merc trades now. For one, that's going to help me stick onto him, dodge his skill shots, but also I'm going to be rushing Iceborne. But I don't want to have 0 MR. I don't want to rush just a straight armor item. And I missed the cheat ward over the wall, unfortunate, but I'm able to stop his base, which is something I want you to keep in mind, where I'm probably going to kill him here actually. Pain CC, like we talked about, W into Q3, so there's no way you can miss the skill shot. And then I block his ulti with my RW. It's very, I won't say it's easy to do so, but you can react to it if you're thinking about it and planning it ahead of time. So now my thought process heading back to lane is I'm already really far ahead of this Mordekaiser, he's 1 and 2. I don't really want to be playing to kill him anymore. I want to be sharing my strength with the rest of my team and playing for Herald. That's the main objective you want to be playing for early game is Cassante, because of course it's the objective closest to top. So here I'm coming straight to Herald trying to play for it, but unfortunately my team does not know how to play with Cassante. They don't know that I can E to them over the wall, they don't give me the jump, so we're unable to win this fight. which is bound to happen, right? Because SANTE has so much in his kit, quite an overloaded kit. Not everyone is going to know what everything does. It's unfortunate, but I'm still going to adapt to what's happening. And my adaptation is I still want to play for Herald. I don't want to let the wave come in. I don't want to kill this Mord anymore. I've already gained my advantage over him. Now I want to be sharing my strength and still playing for this Herald. So I force push. I push as fast as I can. And now I'm looking to play for that Herald. Now, something you'll notice that a huge mistake I see a lot of top and mid laners do is I'm not directly on this Herald. I'm not just sitting here beating it, trying to do damage to it, hit the eye, wasting my time, giving up my position in the lane. I'm just allowing my team to do it. I'm allowing my jungler to clear the Herald and blocking their approach. I don't let Mord come in, I don't let Diana come in, and now there's no way they can contest Herald, but I'm also not losing anything. I don't lose any XP, CS, I don't lose my, my lane state, nothing, because I'm not directly on the Herald hitting it, where of course sometimes you will need to be, guaranteed if they're coming from bot river, but in this case I knew they wouldn't be. I knew they'd be coming from top side, so I was able to basically bodyguard and allow my Shaco to get it for free. And now after this I'm probably going to look to base because I've taken a big chunk of damage and I'm going to say no TP champ, right? So if I can base and get back to lane in time, I'm going to look to punish him pretty hard, but Mordekaiser pushes quite fast, so he should be able to match my recalls now. I don't want to stay in lane half HP when I know I can look to all in him later on if I'm higher HP. So now back in lane, I'm just going to look to slow push this wave out, take my short trades, look to punish him, but mainly I just want to be looking to get my eye spawn, because the kill threat you're going to get on this champion, and you'll see later on, is just times 10 once you have eye spawn. Champion becomes insane, so I push as fast as I can, and you'll notice I didn't go for the tower plate on this timer, where on a lot of champs I would have, but on K'Sante, I noticed they were squaring up around Dragon. So I really want to be allowing my team to get this, stopping them if they're doing it, sharing my strength to the team, which is why I fog down here. But you'll notice I don't fully commit to the dragon because they're no longer playing for it, right? They might have seen I'm coming down and they respect, so now I head back top without losing anything. That's going to be a pattern for you on K'Sante, where you want to be making sure you are a part of any fight that's happening if you're there, but you don't want to fully commit when nothing's happening and just lose stuff top for no reason. Now I'm going to look to push out and probably repeat the process, right? Really want to be a part of fights. For me, a 1 and 2 Mord and a 1 and 3 Mord, it's the same thing. There's not much point me killing him, but if he lets me do it for, if he's trying to stop me from crashing waves and rotate to his team, then of course I'll take the kill. But he's not, right? He's respecting, he knows he doesn't want the smoke. But I'm just saying my main game plan is not to kill this guy anymore. That's already been done. I'm going to clear his pink out here because I'm pretty sure I sniffed a gank. Maybe not, but I'm just respecting. And now I'm going to look to take the short trades, right? My main goal right now is to get Iceborne though, because once I have that, my kill threat's times 10, like we talked about before. And even if he bases it now, yeah, that's fine. I get my Iceborne, so I'm not worried whatsoever. You notice I use my W a lot to wave clear when no one's in the lane, which is such a good wave clearing tool as well. You don't need to be waiting for your Q cooldowns the whole time. And after this, I'm going to look to base. And the reason I could greed is, of course, got TP. I'm not worried about losing anything. Very easy for me to take 2 plates. And now that I have Iceborne, now we're really going to pressure. So I'll slow down this part, but something you'll notice, before in the lane, Mortar could step this far up, right? He could play this aggressive, but now he can't. The second I've got Iceborne, it's a different story. I can play extremely aggressive, and here, so I'm abusing the slow, chaining my CC together, and I dodged his E knockback with my ulti, and blocked his R with my W, right? So pretty well played all in all, but a lot of you thinking, man, that's just ridiculous, he has 2 steps outside his tower, and it is. This champion just has insane kill threat on Iceborne, so you really want to be looking to abuse that spike, which is why I preach it so hard throughout the guide, and now you can see in real time the difference in power it makes. And that was a bit close, but now I'm just looking to break the tower and base and look to impact the mid game as fast as I can. So now to run you through what I was thinking in the game, I just crash here on top in a big wave. I do not need to respond to top for a very long time. So I can use that timer to be a part of this play bot. I can run bot, look to be a part of the fight, but Galileo does it, right? Galileo TP's in, he kills them instead, which is fine. I'm looking to cover a spot mid, and I'm essentially just trying to spread my strength with the rest of my team. And then the most important part about that is you want to be sharing your strength to your team, but you do not want to be giving anything on the other side if you can avoid it. Now, if I were to give the top tier 1 for, a triple kill at Dragon, for example, of course that's going to be great. But if I were to give it for 1 kill bot and then I have to walk all the way here, of course that's not worth. This 1 of 3 Mordekaiser, and some of you feel quite sad watching this, this 1 of 3 Mordekaiser, he should not be allowed to play the game, right? As you can see right now, he literally can't. Where if I were to allow him to break the top tier 1 for free, well, not for free, for, a little play bot that doesn't amount to a big advantage, then it's not going to be worth it. So you really want to be careful that you want to be impacting the game as much as you can without giving anything on the other side. That is the line you need to be hitting on this champion, because you have so much power in the side lane and so much power in team fights. He's just a champion that's good at everything. And of course, there are going to be games where you lose the side lane, of course. I'm not saying you win every side lane, but most of the time, at Iceborne Spike, you should be able to win it if you're not already far behind. So moving on to the next play, now heading back onto the map. The side wave is not in an urgent state. I feel no pressure to respond to Talon or Maud right now, so I can use my body to hover around mid, where I'm going to look to make a pick on Zyra Khan, keep my bot lane safe, but unfortunately my rail goes in too early, so I'm unable to do so. But it's fine, right? We just need to adapt, and here I make one of my biggest mistakes of the game, where I hit bot. And the problem with this is I'm playing on the side next to the objective, which is a big problem. Where here I register and head straight top now, but if I were to have fully committed bot, they could have sent their whole team to deal with me, right? They could have sent 5 people, and they're still going to get the dragon, which is why I want to be on the other side. And the reason I'm calling to give this dragon now, picking off it, is I'm not sure where Diana is. I could have seen her going, maybe I missed it on the map, but I don't want to be in a position where my team is walking into full dragon vision getting killed, and it's not a calculated fight, right? We're behind, I'm the only one strong on my team, so I didn't think this was the time to fight. But I changed my mind as soon as I saw Diana here. As soon as I realized, okay, their jungler's not there, he's not making a pick on my team, now we can look to fight this dragon. So what I should have seen is as soon as Talon wasn't here, right, as soon as Talon wasn't top, I should have just TP'd into this fight. But I go for one extra wave, a bit greedy, not something I recommend, definitely. I should have been in this fight right now. But I TP in and I still make it. My team actually played well on this timer, they respected until I was here, but I definitely should have TP'd in here earlier. That's on me. But now I'm here. Now I'm here, and my job is to stop the divers, the Diana and Talon, from killing my backline. And now, look, I don't even need to use my W or my Q to stop this Talon. I literally just auto-attack him with Ice Spawn, and he can't play the game anymore. And then I use my W to follow up the Gallo engage. And now, okay, my team is safe, right? Talon has used his full combo. There's no threat on my backline anymore. So now I can look to dive onto the back, and I actually missed my ulti. They're standing inside each other. You know, Rakan took one for Xayah. Lovers duo, but we're still able to win the fight, right? I use my champion to stop their divers from killing my backline. And once all the spells were gone, once there was no threat on my Jinx, then I popped my ulti, killed their AD carry, and I was able to carry the fight that way, right? Stopping Talon and Dinah from doing their job. Although Galio helped me a lot in this instance, I did not let Talon carry this game, carry that fight, and then once he was no longer a threat, then I used my spells to kill their backline. So now heading back onto the map, the next objective supporting is Baron, so I want to be playing on the opposite side of that, and Galio is trying to take my lane, right? But we're not going to let that happen. We know where we need to be, and you'll find your teammates will respond accordingly. If you go to the right lane first, ahead of time, and start pushing out the wave, they'll just automatically go to the right lane on accident, right? Because they're just going to wherever CS is, so if you take the right lane, they're going to take the right lane as well by accident. And now he's grouped up with my team, which is exactly where I want him to be, and I'm just looking to fix the side wave to the point where I don't need to deal with it before I look to make an impact on this Baron. And you'll notice that Baron is up in 30 seconds. Baron's not spawned yet, so right now if my team got caught on this timer where I'm not there, it's not my problem, right? It doesn't matter, because they're not going to get Baron from it. That's something you need to realize, where your team is going to get caught every single game. Not every point in the game, but there's going to be so many situations where your team gets caught. But if you can time it so they get caught before the objective's even up, and your team doesn't lose any objective in response for them getting caught, then that's fine. Where now, if I'm pressuring bot lane on the timer and heading towards this Baron on the timer when it's up, then their team is in a way higher chance of getting caught, which will lead to our team getting Baron. So that's what my mindset right now. I'm just looking to put bot wave in a state where I don't need to deal with it, and if I can break this tower, that gives me more time. Where I'm not breaking this tower for the gold, I'm breaking this tower so I can push the bot wave even further, which means I don't have to deal with it for longer, which means I can just group ARAM up, get full control of Baron, and look to kill them when they walk in. So now after I clear this wave, I'm just gonna full commit to Baron most likely, because I'm not here to kill this Talon or to break bot tier 2, right? I'm here just to make sure bot wave is not an issue for me when my team is full committed to this Baron. I'll speed it up a bit, I'll head over to the Baron, I'll probably base and walk there because I have enough gold for something, get my mana back, but essentially I'm just looking to group up with my team now, get full control, and look to force an advantageous Baron fight where bot lane is not in a state where we have to deal with it. It's going to take Talon a very long time to get there, and even Galio win as well. He really wants to be on the wrong side of the map. But that's on him, right? He's got TP, he's got a Galio ult, so that's okay. I understand why he went there, even though it's wrong, but it's fine, right? He's still going to be able to do his job as long as he doesn't die there, and now we're able to get full control of top side, where this would be a lot better. Imagine in this situation where Galio had pushed top out, because he's being protected by the jungler, and then it's very easy for us to get control of Baron. Where here this was pretty ridiculous. The Mordekaiser goes on to me. I use my W for his E, which is a mistake, and now they're looking to pick me. But luckily, I'm playing SANTE. I've got Ghost, like we talked about in the summoner spell section. Ghost is going to allow you to survive a lot of these situations where you get 3, where you get 4 men by the enemy team, because you're just so tanky, so mobile, and with Ghost, it's really hard for them to run you down. Where even though Xayah popped her Ghost right there, I popped a Ghost there. If I had Flash, I was dead 100%, but this is just the strength of Ghost. It allows you to play more aggressive in the side lane. So now coming back onto the map, I want to be opposite side of the Baron, and you'll notice this Galio is trying to take my lane, right? You have to keep a lot of tabs on your mid laner. They really like to be in the wrong place in solo queue, but now I'm in the right place. I want to be at opposite side of the next objective, and you may notice Dragon is spawning as well, but I still want to be here, because for me, Baron is way more important than Dragon, of course, and if they were to commit to me, get full bot side vision, look to gank me 3 or 4 people, my team's going to get full Baron control, which is going to be more beneficial, because that objective is just so much more valuable than a third Dragon. So that's my thought process right now. And now that I've neutralized bot wave, I don't need to think about it in the future. Now I can look to group up with my team. And something you'll notice is I instantly TP in. And a lot of people see, oh, I can play the side lane, I can TP into a fight lane. But that is just not the case, especially on Cassante, where your primary job is keeping your team alive, right? You can't TP in after they've blown all their spells on your Jinx and killed them. You need to be here ahead of time. Now, I'll slow it down for the next team fight, and what I'm thinking, the team fight is about to break out. So in my mind, I've marked Diana, Talon, and Rakan as the primary threats. And for me, Rakan is actually at the top of the list, because he's very telegraphed his engage, right? He's going to pop ulti first, he's going to see the charm around him before he Ws, and that's very easy for me to play around. So I'll slow it down. And now I'm just thinking, okay, I cannot allow this Rakan to combo my Jinx, right? If he does so, it's very easy for Diana to just flash E ulti, Talon to flash follow up as well. But if I can stop it so Jinx is not CC'd at all, she has a lot of room to outplay. Now you see, boom, I block it with W, I stun him, and now it's easy for my Jinx just to shoot him down, get him stuck in the ice spawn. It's very hard for this Rakan to play the game because I am tagging him. And now as soon as he's gone, I tag the next best thing, which is Talon. And at this whole game, this whole fight, my Jinx has been able to play this fight very freely, very untouched, because I was very aware of my role and allowed her to do so. After that fight, we got Baron, and I'm heading back onto the map, and you really want to be using 2 lanes with your Baron. Playing 3 lanes with Baron, someone is always going to get caught, so that's my thought process. I want to be playing mid to bot, and just fully controlling the enemy bot jungle and not allowing my team to be caught. And it's best for me to be the one, ideally it would have me mid and 4 bot if we could, because I'm just this unkillable champion, right? It's very hard for them to touch me, and I can just move between the lanes. And now I'm not able to. Now I'm hitting top, thinking about reacting to it, but Galio goes instead. So now you'll notice I'm not hitting bot. Because like I talked about, with Baron, you want to be playing 2 lanes. And originally, I wanted mid to bot, but the enemy team was smart. They pushed out a top wave to make me react. But now I'm just not reacting, I'm changing my game plan. I'm just thinking, okay, I'll just play mid to top then with Galio top, and we're still playing 2 lanes. So if I went bot right now, I almost guarantee someone would get caught out, but because I'm here protecting them, that's not going to be the case. And now my thought process is the same, just allow Jinx to play the game as much as I can, the best of my ability, and just look to try to scoop someone from under the tower. So here I scoop the Mordekaiser, Jinx is able to damage him, and here I'm pretty sure I make a big mistake in this fight, where I was quite greedy with my Ghost, where Ghost is such a low cooldown with Cosmic Insight, you shouldn't be greedy with it if you can avoid it. And now look, block the Rakan with my W, just not allow him to play the game. Diana ultied me, now sweet. There's no way Jinx can die, and I didn't really expect Xayah to go sicko mode. He made a pretty good hero play. I should have been ghosting, I should have been running towards him and ult him away and keep my Jinx alive. So that was on me. I made a big mistake in this fight, and of course I'll learn from it, but it's just frustrating. You can see that even if you're marking all the threats, I've marked Rakan, Diana, Talon, you still need to be very aware of all the threats. Of course, Xayah is another threat as well. That's just, you can always be getting better at this champion. There's so much you need to keep tabs on in team fights, but if you can get to a good level, the team fights are going to feel really good on this champ. Because you just have so much options, so much carry potential. Once you're aware of all the conditions for what you want to be using your spells on, you're just going to feel really impactful in your game. So now, final sequence of the game, I'm just looking to play mid to bot as well, 2 lanes with Baron, and I'm here early, before my team, so I just want to be controlling the jungle, right? Getting some vision down before they arrive, looking to punish them if they walk in, and just, setting up the foundation so that my team can play the game with vision. And I'm just keeping the wave pushed in. So right now I can't pressure that hard, my team's not here, but once they arrive we can look to punish. And here I could have been a bit more aggressive, I could have scooped the Diana towards my team, but it's okay, the more opportunities will come. And now I'm just looking to CC, knock them back, and it's pretty hard there. Should Diana has tenacity, that I couldn't chain the CC, but essentially we're just doing our job, right? We're playing 2 lanes, mid to bot, we're fully controlling the bot jungle, and I'm just trying to keep Jinx alive as best as I can, and just be a part of these fights where, now, allowing her to break the tower, right? I'm marking Rakan's in my mind, I'm just not allowing him to play, W again, stop him. You'll notice it's a very common thing I did multiple times in this game, and it's something you need to keep in mind. This was my game plan heading into fights. I didn't just reactively, oh, Rakan W, and I'm gonna W him and stop it, right? I've just planned it out ahead of time. This is how I want to be playing out these team fights, not allowing Rakan to kill my Jinx, and as you can see, it's worked out pretty well so far. But now we don't have Baron, it's pretty hard to threaten to pressure anymore. And it's very easy to survive games like this on Cassante. I'm going to be looking to group up with my team, right? We're pretty split right now. the macro is not looking too clean. You know, me and Jinx are in the right place, someone else is in the wrong place. But now, look, I'm bringing them back into the box. And it's very hard to kill this champ, especially with Ghost. You'll notice it's just so strong. And I'm just, we're just both waiting out the ulti. And now, nice, I can keep Jinx alive. This is my main intention. Just staying there. The Jinx looking to shield him, W this diner off. Maybe even ult him away so he can't kill him. And then come straight back to my Jinx, pop the shield onto him. And you'll notice that is my thought process, right? Keep this Jinx alive, allow him to do his job. And especially if I've marked the key champions, the key spells, it's very easy for me to do so. And that's the reason we were able to win this game, even though everyone on my team got destroyed in the early game except me. Up next, we're going to be covering the draft. So once you have Cassante in your champion pool, you know the best conditions to pick him, what you want to be looking out for, and what you want to avoid. However, out of all the champions I've covered so far, Cassante has the most leeway in terms of he's good in basically every single draft, but there are some things you need to know. So I'll start off by going through your own team, and the champs you want to be seeing from jungle are champions that provide damage. Because if you're fed on Cassante, of course you're going to be able to do everything, but if you're in a game where you're even or slightly behind, you're basically just a frontline and crowd control for your team, so you want to be getting damage from the other roles. So from jungle, you want to have champs like Graves, champs like Talia, champs that are going to be doing a lot of damage, where if you keep them alive, they're going to provide a lot of value in the game. And as from mid, it's going to be champs that, of course, provide damage as well, but you want to have some long range. You want to have champs like Azir, champs like Syndra, feel really good playing with Cassante because they can poke down the enemy team from far away, and if they try to get engaged on, that's where you come in, stopping the engage. So champs with long range are very good, which ties into AD carry, right? High damage, high range. Champs like Jinx, champs like Kog'Maw, Xayah, really good with Cassante. And as for support, it's actually really good to play Cassante with enchanters. Champs like Soraka, champs like Lulu, Milio, really good scaling that if you keep them alive, you're going to have a ton of benefit. And as for champs you don't want on your team, you don't want to be playing with other tank junglers. So champions like Sejuani, champs like Maokai, you're not really going to have a lot of damage from topside. So if you verse, let's say, a Darius with Merc Treads or an Olaf, you're really going to struggle to take him down. And as from mid, it's going to be AD diving champions. So champs like Zed, Talon, Irelia, they don't really fit into what Cassante wants to do. You want to be keeping your team alive, peeling off their divers. You don't really want to be following them up, right? If a Talon flashes in, jumps to the backline, it's pretty hard for you to get onto him. You need to follow him up and help him out. As for AD carry, it's going to be low damage champs. So champs like Jhin, champs like Israel, not really good because if you're keeping them alive, you know, spending your resources to keep them alive, you want to have a bit of a payout, right? You don't want Jhin to sit back using W and R when you're trying to keep divers off of him. Doesn't do a lot of damage. You really want to be playing with these high damage threats. And as for support, you don't want other beefy frontline, right? You don't want to have other champs like Tam or Braum whose job is also to keep your backline alive because you're going to be able to do that yourself. Moving on to the enemy team. So the champs you want to see on the enemy team that make you think, alright, Cassante is going to be pretty good this game. From top lane, it's going to be champs that are weak in the side lane. So champions like Malphite, champions like Ornn feel quite good to versus Cassante because you're going to get pushed against them, almost guaranteed. And you can make them stuck inside and react where if you're versus a champion, such as Darius or Olaf, or Camille, where they're going to outscale you eventually in the side if you're not ahead, and they can make you react. It's quite annoying having to deal with them because you're scared of losing your tower. But if you verse a champ like Malphite or Ornn, that's not really going to be the case, and you're going to be able to participate in more team fights and also keep them stuck inside at the same time. Now, as for jungle, it's going to be champions that are very CC reliant engages. So champs like Vi and Hecarim are really good to play against. They can't really do anything to you. And as for mid, it's going to be divers as well. Aurelia and Yasuo, most likely champs like that, very easy for you to peel them off and stop them from doing their job, and they don't really have a ton of damage that they can use to bust down a tank. And as for AD carry, it's also going to be AD divers, so champs like Samira, champs like Nyla, very easy for you to peel off and stop them doing what they want to do, and you can always just ult them away and beat them up yourself. And as for support, you really like versing hook champions. So noticeably, champs like Blitzcrank, Nautilus, and Thresh, you can just stop them from doing their job completely. You can stand in front of your team and just block hooks with your W. They're going to be completely useless. There's nothing worse than playing Blitzcrank into a good Cassante because he's just going to block every single one of your hooks. Now, as for the champs you don't want to be versing from top lane, it's going to be champs that want to be keeping you stuck in the side lane. So champions like Olaf, champs like Alawi, they're going to make it so you constantly have to react to them in the side, and if you don't get a big lead against them in lane phase, they're going to have push, so it's very hard for you to deal with that because you want to be grouping, you want to be fighting, but if they're constantly making you react to them, you're not going to be able to participate in as many fights. And from jungle, it doesn't actually matter too much, to be honest. You don't really care if you verse champs like Rek'Sai or if you verse Graves, right? It doesn't matter. But for the most part, champs that can easily kite you can be a bit of a problem. So champs like Talia, champions like Lilia, very hard for you to, stick onto them and do anything. They can chip you away, and those champs with Liandry's as well do quite a bit of damage. And as from mid, it's going to be very high damage threat range champs. So Azir and even Cassio can be a bit of a problem, where they're just going to chip away at you. They're going to do a lot of damage to you. We prefer to verse a low damage mid, of course, because you're going to be basically invincible. And from AD carry, it's going to be the same thing. High damage marksmen that are long range. So champions like Jinx and Kog'Maw. And the problem with this, and I compare it to before, we don't want to be playing with a low damage AD. Let's say you're trying your best, you're keeping your Jhin alive, right? You're doing everything you can, peeling off all the divers, but their Jinx is also alive, right? Their Jinx is just getting down your front line, and they're just doing way more damage than your backline. It's not going to feel as good, but luckily Cassante is going to be tankier than most front lines, so as long as the damage difference isn't massive, you're going to be fine. And as for support, it's going to be similar. You don't be versing scaling enchanters. So champions like Milio, champs like Lulu, is going to allow their AD carry to do more damage to you. You really want to be versing divers, right? If a Nautilus or a Rel goes onto you, and you completely stop his engage, like the Rakan from earlier in our full game review, their champ's going to be completely useless, and you're going to feel extremely impactful. Next, we're going to be covering how to counter Cassante. Now, this is easier said than done. This champion is extremely powerful right now, but like we talked about in the laning section, he's one of the best champs in the game at freezing and trying to scoop you into the tower, trying to punish a freeze, so you want to be trying to avoid letting him do that. So instead of just fast pushing away, for example, letting him block 6 minions, you want to be slow pushing, really big waves, so it's really hard for him to freeze. You can crash a huge wave under his tower, and then the wave's going to come back towards you. The next point is play around his Iceborne spike. This champion's power just increases so dramatically when he reaches Iceborne, so you really need to play around it. Well, you notice in the full game review, the Mordekaiser didn't do so, and as soon as I got back to lane, even though he was one step away from his tower, it led to me being able to very easily kill him. You really need to be aware when he gets it and play accordingly, and ideally you can punish him before he gets to the spike. Because especially early game, there are a lot of strong bruiser champs that can destroy Cassante early, while he's still got a Doran shield, so you need to be trying to use that to get an advantage before he gets to that point. And the final point is have some discipline with your crowd control and your gap closes. So, to give an example, let's say you're playing a champion like Renekton, where you're stunned, he's going to be trying to block it with his W. So you just dash onto him, you start hitting him, auto attack Q, and wait for him to use his W. Now once it's on cooldown, you can even try dodge the dash with your second E, and then look to stun him afterwards, and the trade's going to be a lot better for you. And in terms of your gap closer, I'll give an example where you're playing Camille. He can actually cancel your gap closer, not just with his W, which is easier to play around because he has to channel it now, he can cancel your gap closer with his ulti, so you have to be really careful, where if you E away, right, and he just cancels with ulti, you're really going to struggle, so you should be fighting him, wait for him to use his ulti, and then E away if you can. But of course, once he has Iceborne, that's going to be a lot harder, which is why you need to be playing around that item. It's so powerful. But before that point, you can just fight him, look to cut him out with your movement, and then wait for him to use his ulti before you E away. We're going to wrap up this guide with the main takeaways, the most important things I want you to keep in your mind when playing this champion. And the first point is your general game plan in lane, where you want to be building big waves and then they come back towards you, and putting your wave in a state where you can easily threaten knocking them under the tower and netting yourself a solo kill. Now that's not going to be the same every game, it really depends on the matchup and the game state, but if you check the laning section of the guide, you can see some inspiration of the variables, but for the most part, especially for strong bruiser champions, that is going to be your game plan. Second point, you're probably sick of hearing it by now, but Iceborne is an insane power spike. You really want to look to abuse it, use that window not just for creating a 1v1 advantage, but trying to be a part of as many teamfights as you can while you're at your strongest. Now, in terms of team fighting, this is something you need to be putting a ton of time and effort into if you want to be a master of Cassante in these team fights, because you have so many options to min-max your champion that you really need to be planning it out ahead of time. Plan out the champions you're going to be marking, the spells you want to be blocking, or even in some games where you're not going to be peeling, the champions you want to be removing from the team. You really want to be planning out your team fights ahead of time, because if you review it and you see, oh, my plan was wrong, it's better to make a proactive mistake than a reactive one, and it's going to be a lot easier for you to grow as a Cassante player overall. And the final takeaway is abuse your strength inside to be a part of more teamfights and skirmishes for your team. You don't want to be using your strong 1v1 3 and side lane to just push the wave under tower, try to break the tier 2, eat the enemy jungle camp, solo kill with the 1 of 3 mod, whatever you're up against. You don't want to be using that. You don't want to be playing in that way. You want to be using your strength to make the side wave a non-factor for you. You push the wave all the way in so you don't have to deal with it for the next 90 seconds, and you use that time to pressure the enemy team and help out your team as well. Okay everyone, I'm going to call it there, and the final thing I want to say is that even though Cassante is quite overpowered right now, he's still an extremely fun champ to play. His kit is so smooth, all the combos work well together, so I really recommend you add him to your pool, and even in the future when he hopefully gets nerfed to a balanced state, he's still going to be strong. His kit is so powerful, so high impact, that unless they completely gut him, he's still going to be useful, so he's going to be a really good champ for you to add to your champ pool. So other than that, I wish you guys the best of luck in your Cassante game, and I'll see you guys next time.